Should we just start?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So welcome to this third and last streaming event in the streaming series. My name is Anna, and I will go through the plan for today. So we will just start with discussing some of the practical things. So how do we design a cohousing community together? We will go into sociocracy or dynamic governance, which is will go into structure and management for a co-housing community. And we will talk about the work groups and meeting arrangements. And then we will talk about the next steps for Kjarnasamfelag Reykjavíkur in 2021. And we will go a little bit into building plot and finance. And we will end with a little bit of discussions. So before we start, it would be great if you all would take just a minute to write in the comment felt or in the chat what is best. Comment felt. I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is the
I think the chat will
the
be
chat
seen.
maybe is best.
Yeah,
Yes.
will be seen.
So you can write there just your name, or we can see that already. The size of your household, how many persons living together, and what you are most excited about regarding co-housing. Just so we get a little bit of idea of each other. So you can just write in the chat. So now I will write for myself. We can all write how many people we are.
Mm-hmm. Should we also do it?
Yes, so they also know who we are.
Yeah.
And if you're hearing this later, you can write it in the Umbrella group if you like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Dog and horses. Okay. So so we can all just see a little bit of what the other ones are writing. So we'll move forward to the next slide. So the goal of this event is to go more practically into how co-housing can be started, organized, and managed. And there are many hundreds of co-housing communities around the world, and they all have been through this process and learned something from their experience in creating and managing a co-housing community. So we are not trying to invent the wheel, like we say. We want to use the experience and knowledge that already is out there in our advantage to help us in this process. We've been to a conference that was held in the US online last summer, which introduced us to the many specialists and people with experiences in this field, and that had a lot of models and structure for how co-housing community can be created, designed, and managed. And we will go through some of that material we were presented to give you an idea of how this process could look like. So, the first thing, how do we design a co-housing community together with other people? How can 10, 20, 50 people design a co-housing community together when they maybe don't know each other that much before? So, and to go through that, I would like to present Mary Kraus. She's a co-housing architect who has designed dozens of co-housing communities. she developed a model with her colleague based on experience to how you can efficiently get the process going in designing a co-housing community together with other people. And I will quickly go through some of her slides just to give you an idea. And now I will have to start sharing my screen just while I go through that. So I will share my screen. Can you see? You can see that now? Okay. So she presented some steps to take when you are creating a community, designing a community together with other people. And it started with a survey.
Scroll in, Anna-Maria, you should maybe scroll in to make the slides bigger. Yeah, nice.
Okay. So she had some steps to take. The first was a survey. And I will just show you there. She was kind of gathering information about what the people wanted for the co-housing community. So they had a lot of questions to go through, like regarding was it important to have what was important for them to have a common kitchen, for example, here for the common house, and they rated it how much important it was to them. If it was very important, it was in this place, and if it was not so important or wrong for them, it was on the far right. And from this survey, they gathered a good information that they collected in the end in a survey analysis, where they could concluded something, some of it. For example, ceiling heights they had in this one. They all kind of agreed that they wanted higher ceiling heights than in normal buildings for more daylight. So they were all kind of agreeing on that, so they did not maybe have to go into discussing that. And then they had another question where they were not completely agreeing. There were some people who disagreed, and then their conclusion was that we have to put that on an agenda and discuss that item to figure out what we really want as a group. And from that, they could make some kind of find out what they agreed on, and then they went over to weekend workshop, and there they presented the results from the survey, and they had some workshops, some exercises to do together. So they had, I'm just going quickly over some of it. There they had their overarching goals in the workshop. So they kind of agreed on, they wanted privacy within the home, they wanted community at the doorstep, green design, family housing, affordable, some of that stuff that was important to them. And they agreed on that. And then they had some more site analysis where they went through the site or the plot they had in mind or had already gotten, and discussions about some of the stuff and some image board where they found something that they all liked and discussed that. And then they had these small blocks, tree houses that they tried out some few design ideas. So how would they like if the houses were like that? And they tried to change it together with an architect. And then they started making some more sketches of how it could look like. And as you can see, they had many different suggestions. And here they are trying out having the common house here and the other houses here and common house here and the houses like that. And then they started to draw some suggestions here, the architects. And I'm just gonna go, and then they had those drawings final, it appears, and then they started building, and then it was ready and they moved in, and apparently a few years have gone by. Just looks so nice. So back to the slideshow. Maybe I will stop sharing that screen. And for me to see this, her presentation and those slides made so much sense, and I finally understood how this could actually be possible to make with other people. So if we go to the next slide. So another topic that was also discussed on that conference was, how is co-housing community managed? And we were introduced to the concept sociocracy, or dynamic governance. That was an American guy called Ted Rau, who has made a program to help people create the management structure in their co-housing community. And he kind of came into the process quite early in the beginning, before they moved in and when they were just designing everything. So their slogan was, sharing power needs a plan. So if you think you can just start this in a group and figure everything out while you do it, it will probably not go so well, or take many, many years and a lot of unnecessary failure, he says, from his experience. So you have to have some kind of a plan if you're going to make a big project like that together with other people. So their basic concept was, everyone matters and everyone contributes, but not everyone is in on all decisions. On all major decisions, especially in the beginning when it's being decided how it's going to be, people can be in on all of them or have a say on all of them, but not the small ones. Ted mentioned a co-housing community with a really bad management structure, where 45 people were sitting for 2.5 hours discussing which garbage bins to buy. And that's kind of insane. And we would like to avoid that at all costs, to do that. So the sociocracy that he presented, so how we see this is that after we would have designed our community together, so maybe went through the other process that I mentioned before, we could move forward and start working in work groups to get the project going. And sociocracy, or dynamic governance, could be the way to go. And in this, his model is, the white circle is all the members in the community, and the red group in the middle is the central group. And the central group has usually one member from all of the other work groups. So the other work groups can be finance, plot, shared spaces, things, architecture and design, and so on. So the central group can make sure that the important information can be passed on between groups when necessary, or when they need to work together, those groups. And that is this one. So most conflicts arose in these co-housing communities he was working with because of undefined expectations and needs between the work groups and the rest of the community. So many of the conflicts came because the big group were maybe not happy that the small group took some decisions without them being able to have a say on it. And they needed kind of to define the needs and expectations between the groups, so that the small group would know that on this topic it was important to have everyone included. And that's, for example, if you have a small group that's finance, then it might be important for the big group, the whole community, makes it clear to the small group in the beginning that they want their suggestions, that the small group listens to their suggestions and ideas, and they want to vote before anything is decided on which loan types to take or something. And the smaller group might say, okay, we respect your wishes, but you will have to give us some period of time to get back to you with after we have researched this, and we will present it to you and we will all vote on it. So maybe we want from you to send us some information before some date or something. So we just make this relationship between these groups clear. And that way, a lot of conflicts could be avoided, because a lot of it came because of the misunderstanding of what each role was. So they actually, in the Sociocracy, they had a really good process for creating the work groups. And it was not like this typical, who wants to be a leader of this group, raise your hand. They did not necessarily have it like that. They defined the roles and terms and the qualifications needed for each group, for the person who was maybe leading a group. For example, finance, it's important that someone who would be good at that. And then they had a round of nominations. So people could nominate each other if they felt that someone would be good for that role. And to have that in the process made the groups often better, because you were not just picking the ones who were the fastest at putting their hands up. Sometimes the best person for the role was someone who did not necessarily think they were the best person for it. And so they had just this process of when they were changing the groups or starting the groups. And then, of course, people could confirm if they wanted to be nominated, one of the people nominated, or not. So, and this is just an ideas to work from. We're not saying that we will definitely, we will have it like this, but this is something that we at least like to have something in that direction, or this could help us. And they had some, in the Sociocracy for All, they had this for the decision making and to make the meetings efficient. They had this plan, basically. It's like in many workplaces. And new people moving into the cohousing community, he mentioned, they actually just learned the structure quickly, so everything could move quite smooth and efficient when they were having meetings and deciding on something. And and this could be really important, especially when we move forward for this for real, and we might have weekly or every other week meetings to discuss and decide on something important. So it's good that we have good management structure and good meeting structure. This is just an example of a work group he showed us. So here you can see there are the central circle, and you have common house, community life, and those different groups. And some of them have subgroups. And it's not like all of those groups are working all of the time. Some of it is just in periods. But just so we have an idea of how those work groups can look like. And the work groups that we think that we will have to found in 2021 are probably going to be something like that. So we have finance, plot, ownership rights, design and architecture, and maybe some subgroups under that, social structure, and social media, reach out to media and get new people for the group, find the interested people in this. Some of those groups might be, one group could have two of those topics, but this is just how we see it right now, at least. And the next steps for Kjarnasamfelag Reykjavíkur in 2021, we are, kind of just change the text for it today. So in January, we are planning that we have like a project kickoff with dinner. So we get to exchange ideas and meet face to face, finally. Hopefully without masks, but with masks, of course, if necessary. And in February to have like a plot workshop where we brainstorm about plots and locations. And in March, a participatory design workshop where we start designing the co-housing community together. And that would probably be inspired or with Mary Kraus' help, like I presented earlier, her participatory design model with a weekend workshop. And in April, a co-housing management workshop, which would be about sociocracy and create the work groups. And after that, the work groups could start working. And in May, we would have a financing workshop altogether to look into that. And our ambitious goal is to have a plot and start to build the co-housing community in late 2021. And hopefully moving in 2022 or 23. Now, Simon will give us a little status, a little information about the plot and finance.
Oh, hi, good evening, everyone. I can fill you in a little bit on what has happened or not happened with getting a plot. But we can say that we have several options, of course. I mean, depending what we want to do, we could either try and search for a plot that has buildings on them that can be retrofitted. I mean, at least here in Reykjavik, there is a few kind of areas where some hot development going on right now. So maybe some retrofit would actually be possible to make a common house out of some old building and then set up some new buildings for a residential purpose around. But it's of course also a possibility to just kind of lay out the plan for a plot entirely from scratch. And there is a few areas that are being developed here in Reykjavik, namely Skerjafjörður and Gufunes. And then we are trying to get in touch with the city to find out what exactly the procedure is to get a plot from the city. Because what the city is doing right now is to give away, and by that I do not mean to say for free, but they are giving away on a fixed rate plots to housing associations or húsnæðissamvinnufélög, how that is called in Icelandic, on a fixed rate. So we do not have to compete with real estate developers and drive up the price of the plot in that sense. So that would be really good. But on the other hand, it is of course also an option to just keep an eye open and see if any suitable plots come up for sale, depending on which neighborhood and which part of the city we would like to build this co-housing in. That is of course something we need to discuss with everyone. But yeah, hopefully we can have some information, some concrete information from the city, at least from Reykjavíkurborg, on what the conditions are exactly, what you have to, fulfill to be able to get one of those plots, and then we could just tailor our organization a little bit after that. So if it needs to be very affordable, or if our building would have to follow some green building standards, then we could just kind of guide our project a little bit into that direction in order to hopefully be able to get a plot that is going to be below market value. Yeah, so that is the status on the plots.
Yes, and you were also maybe about the financing, just shortly.
Yeah, so I have had some meetings. Jesper and me, we went to a bank and had the first heard them out how it's best to tackle such a financing such a project, and then I did some more research into financing, and there are possibilities to get some green loans, or also loans through Húsnæðis- og Mannvirkjastofnun. And mainly the catch is that you need to fulfill certain criteria. I mean, if you want to have green bonds from Reykjavíkurborg, then the building needs to follow the BREEAM standard. So that will in turn then drive up building cost, but maybe it will be a better building or a more sustainable building, environmentally speaking. But it would also be possible to get money from Húsnæðis- og Mannvirkjastofnun if our project follows certain or ticks certain boxes, let's say, because Húsnæðis- og Mannvirkjastofnun, they are not, maybe you could say they are not just supporting anyone. They support kind of, maybe you could say, special needs people. So, and with that, I mean, including, you know, projects that are supposed to be affordable. So that is included in that metaphor. But what we have found out so far, also in talks with other people who have been looking into cohousing here in Iceland, is that we would probably need 2 different loans. One for the building phase, where we need money to finance the contractors that are building the project or making the buildings, while all of us still live in our own houses. And because nothing is ready and nothing presents a building, we will not be able to get a loan for that, because that does not present a security. So we will need to find someone that partners up with us and can pre-finance, so to say, the whole building project during construction phase, and then hopefully sell this whole thing to us individually or to our housing association individually. Or we would need to use our own apartments or I mean other, say, valuables as security to get individual bank loans. So there is a few options to tackle this as well, and I am not perfectly sure what will be the best one for us, but it depends a little bit. I mean, for example, if we can manage to find a building contractor or a real estate developer that would kind of trust us enough and be kind of visionary in this sense to try and make this happen with us, then maybe we could go into strategic financing partnership as well, that someone else can pre-finance this for us and we will buy the finished result of them. I think that might be the most easy way, but it is questionable if we can find someone like this. So it depends on a few things that we need to work out.
Yeah, there's of course no examples of this in Iceland yet. So no one has done it like that, but it has been done in so many other countries. So we know it's possible. It's just about figuring out the best way and for Iceland. And you know, in Denmark, they are the one that I have been following, this eco-village that are building a few of co-housing at the same time. Then people are only paying a small, just like a couple 100,000 Icelandic kroners in the beginning, just like a deposit, and then they pay the full price when they move in. So then there is this company that is financing and building it and then selling it to them. Right.
So there's it's a big commercial body with enough financing power behind. Yeah. That's of course what we don't have, but I mean, as you say it, I mean, this has been done so many times in many countries, so we can just look at how it is done there and try to figure out which of those options would fit best to here and try and go for that. And if that doesn't happen, we can try another.
Yeah, we'll just have to look into it. And also regarding this ownership right, that's also something to do with
Exactly. I mean,
what kind of ownership right we will end up using.
What we have already established, and that is maybe interesting to add here, is that not all ownership forms and not all financial financing frameworks that are pretty established, for example, in Denmark, are available here. So that is another factor to consider, like how can we, into what legal form can we put this actually? Have to make do a little bit.
Yeah, but we have been into it on the last events also. You have been to meetings with a lawyer that is looking into these things, and we will continue to look into this after Christmas at least. So yeah, we'll hopefully see you for the first time face to face in January, and feel free to discuss in Umræða group if you have any questions or cool videos or links or something. It's always great to get new inputs. So yeah, thank you for tonight, and
Thank you.
we'll see you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you.
It's very interesting.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, great. Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.